rise today in strong opposition to the efforts to nullify the Environmental Protection Agency's mercury and air toxic standards, what has been called MATS in this debate. This far-reaching resolution would severely and permanently undermine the EPA's authority to protect our nation's air from harmful and dangerous pollutants. In New Hampshire, we've long enjoyed bipartisan cooperation when it comes to crafting policies that ensure clean air, a strong economy, and healthy citizens. We do have coal-fired power plants in New Hampshire, but they have scrubbers on them to clean up the air. When I was governor, we passed a 4-pollutant bill to address mercury, and it was passed with bipartisan support. No one appreciates our clean air more than a woman named Leah Houck, who's from Henniker, New Hampshire. Leah has lived with cystic fibrosis for the past 40 years. In order to breathe, she must use a nebulizer 3 times a day, and she has to exercise daily to clear her lungs. When pollution poisons the air, she suffers from chest tightness and lung hemorrhaging that can lead to hospitalization. Pollution also worsens the long-term effects of cystic fibrosis, like lung scarring, and it causes her disease to progress more rapidly. To protect Leah and millions like her, Congress passed the Clean Air Act, and it has long been one of our most successful public health and environmental laws. And yet, despite the success of the Clean Air Act, we now face efforts to prohibit the Environmental Protection Agency from regulating toxic air pollutants. At issue are the new mercury and air toxic standards, which will require power plants to control the pollution that affects Leah and others who suffer from respiratory problems. For the first time, the standards set federal limits on the amount of mercury, arsenic, chromium, nickel, and acid gases that power plants can release into our air. These standards will eliminate emissions of these poisonous chemicals from the power plants by 90% by 2015. These new nationwide standards are based on widely available pollution control technologies that are already in place at power plants across the country. They represent a realistic, achievable goal. Yet opponents of MATS argue the environmental regulations will hurt the economy. That's simply not true. These standards will benefit our health, our economy, and our environment. And by removing the largest source of many of these toxins, the new standards will prevent an estimated 17,000 premature deaths and 11,000 heart attacks each year. America's children will be spared 120,000 asthma incidents and 11,000 cases of acute bronchitis. That's particularly important for us in the Northeast. The presiding officer knows what this is because we're in the tailpipe to the nation in New England and the Northeast. We get all of the pollution that's coming out of the Midwest from those dirty power plants. In New Hampshire, we have one of the highest children's asthma rates in the country because of that pollution. And far from being job killers, these regulations will mean new work for the innovative American companies that supply the equipment needed for plants to comply with the law. In fact, a study by the Economic Policy Institute found that enactment of these standards would create a net gain of 117,000 jobs. Of course, clean air is vital to the tourism and outdoor recreation economy, which in my state, New Hampshire, is the second largest industry. All the beautiful sights of our state, from the White Mountains to the Great Bay, can only be enjoyed if our air is free of smog and clean to breathe. So as we consider whether or not to keep the Clean Air Act in place, we don't have to choose between helping people like Leah or helping our economy. We can and we must do both. I urge my colleagues to reject the resolution that Senator Inhofe has offered and to continue to protect the health and welfare of our citizens. Thank you very much. I yield the floor.